Yo, yo, my sovereigns, what up? This is Boba Fett. Boba Fett, uncensored on the internet, with episode 81 of Splinterlands 101. Joining us once again, co-hosts of the show, finest gentleman who ever lived, Matt Clark,
Here's Matt Clark. He's one of the finest gentlemen that ever lived.
Howdy, howdy.
and the controller of the Pouffet Poussey, Geotrix.
And Pouffet Pousse.
How are we, boys?
Morning all. So we've switched things around a little bit here. So normally in Australian time we usually do about 9:30 in the evening. So we're on the sort of the rundown of the day when we do the show. But this morning we're all up bright and early. It's 10 a.m. or 10:30 for us Melburnians here in Danistan, and it's 10 for the Adelaide, the Bright Wing. So I guess we're all smashing coffees at the moment.
Already down.
Yeah, I'm on my second. So what happened with the Commonwealth Games, chaps? Is it too early to talk about that, or what's the go there?
You tell me. I know nothing about it.
They're
I heard
cancelled.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
Melbourne Commonwealth Games 2025, 2026. Anyway, they're cancelled.
It's
Well,
not
we
in the
have all
budget
these
because we sent money.
unvaccinated people coming into the Republic.
You guys are just totally bankrupt. Not just morally, like obviously
Yeah.
Melbourne morally, but
Yeah.
also financially.
It's because we probably sent our money elsewhere. I'm not going to say any countries' names or whatever, but that's probably part of the reason. I don't know.
Yeah, no, Dan declared it yesterday morning. So yeah, no Commonwealth Games for you. I don't know if we can steal it back, sort of do like a reverse Grand Prix. If SA can maybe thieve it off you, but yeah, so good
Good
fun.
time to try. Yeah. I mean, Kim Jong-dan obviously doesn't like all these foreigners coming into the country to, like the tennis. I mean, how long has tennis been an icon of Melbourne? And good old Novak stood up for himself and was kicked out of the Republic. So yeah, we've got to set the precedent. Can't have all these dirty unvaccinated people coming in for Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, strutting
I-
around like they own themselves.
Exactly.
I reckon they should
Yeah.
change the name. It should not be named Commonwealth anymore. Like there's no wealth. There's no wealth here. Not
Common
not.
debt.
Yeah. There's nothing here to say there's wealth. Like
We need
where?
we need a gap. We need a gap between the commoners and the wealthy. Right?
Yeah.
That's the
Like the House of Lords and the House of Commons,
yeah,
but
exactly.
in a public domain. Yeah,
They just used to be
exactly.
more honest about it. That's all.
Well, they still have House of Lords and House of Commons in British
Mm.
Parliament. Yeah. I mean, we have upper and lower. It's a little more subtle, upper house, lower house, but yeah. So yeah, just you're born into your entitlements to have a seat in Parliament. You know, you're born into entitlement. And when you think about it, England is actually a fundamentalist state because the Queen is head of the government and head of the Church of England. So yeah, it's a fundamentalist state run by oligarchies and um, nepotism dynasties. You're born into a ruling seat as a lord or a baron or a count, and all these inbred European English countries. Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, the Windsors, Saxe-Coburg, they're all German anyway, so there is no British royalty.
No, countries are a hallucination for the common folk. The guys at the top of the food chain, they don't recognise countries as being in any way relevant to anything.
No.
Just like farmers looking at farms, right? The cattle go, well, this is the world, and the farmer goes, well, this is just Gary's farm. That's Dave's farm over there. Here's my farm. We're just cattle on a tax farm. I think we
Yeah.
need to get comfortable with that idea, or really, really uncomfortable with it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably the latter. Yeah. Start setting up guillotines in public squares again. Worked for the French all those years ago. Not for
Yeah,
long,
well,
not for long, but it
no,
had a short interim effect. And I think the French are on the verge of that again at the moment.
yeah, the
They're
tree of
like,
Oh
liberty.
yeah.
I just keep coming back to you got Macron, who's painfully unpopular, and he's got what 5 or 6 security guys, and they've got what 20 rounds each. When a crowd of 100,000 people come for you, it doesn't matter that you've got half a dozen security guards with their 2 20-round magazines or whatever they have, right? Ultimately, your security guys aren't going to start firing into a crowd that's attacking them, because that's when you don't get ignored. If the crowd's big enough, you just blend into it and leave the guy to his own.
exactly. Yeah.
You don't just
I,
stand there and go, "Oh, I'll just empty my clip and then hope I've got time to reload before the crowd comes and tears me limb from limb." I might just
Run.
not make a thing of it.
Abort.
Yeah, yep.
Abort
Just run.
mission.
Get lost in the crowd. Don't make a
Yeah.
thing. So I think some of these guys are really overestimating just how well protected they are. Against a crowd of 20, sure. Against a crowd of 200, yeah, sure. But when the crowd gets big enough, there's nothing that's going to stop it.
And not if the
Certainly not
crowd
me.
was actually smart, like, and like ambushed them in some way, flanks, like you got to use some tactics here, people.
Eventually,
I
they're
used to
just
think,
swarming over the embassy, and you get the helicopter,
Yeah.
trying to get you out in time. It's an iconic scene for a reason.
I used to think that all the time, like watching all the clips during the pandemic of the country's dictator strutting around with his little security force, and a sufficient number of people standing around going boo, boo, shame, shame. It's like, well, you're in a perfect position right now to do something
Yeah.
about this. But and when you're saying like blending into the crowd, I remember back in the I guess 90s and maybe into the O's, I'm not sure, but definitely in the 90s, used to do a lot of security work. My Kung Fu school were on like calling lists all these security companies. We used to do big day out and things like that. And you'd start the big day out with, the required number of security guards. But bit by bit during the day, off would come the security shirts. It'd make their way to mosh pits and like you never see them again. It's like they join these gigs just to get into the event for free, and then they just disappear into the crowd.
That's
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah, it's like the iconic story that they mentioned on Town Hall, with I think Beard mentioned it, the story of the guy who applies for a job with his favorite gaming company, and he gets it, and then he just fixes a bug with a game that's been bothering him for years, and he could never get tech support help with, and then he just puts in his 2 weeks notice, like, it's fine, I fixed it, I'm done now, I'm gonna,
Back to my game. Yeah.
sold out show. I'll just be a security guard. So speaking of Splinterlands, this proposal to I think it's it's almost dry, and there's a bit of back knowledge required, like a bit of really background knowledge to understand before you can sort of wrap your head around what they're talking about. So for those who don't understand, the liquidity pool is, I've done a piece on liquidity pools before, but it's fascinating new technology and a way of running markets. But it's about somebody puts two equal values of 2 different tokens together, and then makes it available, or adds it to a pool that then people can swap from one to the other equal amounts. And the less of a shift that you're proposing, the less of a imbalance that your proposed swap will give the pool, the cheaper it is for you to do it. So if you've got a massive pool with heaps of tokens and you just want to swap $100 worth, and there's $1 million worth in there, then it's going to be like a 0.1%, minimal, and then you can just swap from one to the other. And everybody who's supplying liquidity gets paid a little bit of that fee, but it's very easy to move in and out large amounts. But they really rely on a massive amount of liquidity, right? The bigger the better, because it becomes like a black hole where it attracts its own gravity. If you've got a big one, then more people will use it, so more people will apply liquidity. It's not something you can bootstrap. You really need to start big and hard, and a lot of liquidity providers, a lot of people running liquidity pools will say, okay, I'm doing a massive introductory offer where if you supply liquidity here, we're going to give you this massive amount of secondary token, or whatever sort of inducement, because they want it to get huge. Because if it's huge, people will use it. and then that will continue to spur on more. And so this proposal is about saying there's the DAO that we kind of all own. It has resources. It has these tokens, and it has the tokens in the liquidity pool, right? So that's great. That's all good. But they're suggesting that at the moment, only the non-DAO contributors to the liquidity pool are making those fees. The DAO itself has said, no, I'm not going to take any of the fees that I would normally accrue if I was an individual supplying this much liquidity, and it's like the largest liquidity provider. So we're talking about a big cut. So basically, the idea is of this proposal is: do we want this collectively owned DAO that's controlled by SPS stakers to be rewarded for supplying liquidity to this LP at the expense of the outsiders or the individuals who are currently doing it? Because at the moment, the people who are applying liquidity into this pool are getting a disproportionately large share of the fees, the rewards, because the main contributor to the pool isn't taking any rewards itself. So this would, I guess, the upside of this is the DAO is getting more funds because it's making those fees like it would if it was an individual. The downside is those who are not I guess the contributors who aren't the DAO will see a reduction in the fees that they make, which might then have them looking elsewhere. So they might then decide, well, we're not going to do this. We're going to go in a different liquidity pool. And if they take their tokens out, then we have less volume. That means a higher slippage if you want to swap from one token to another, and it could mean that fewer people use that liquidity pool overall. So that's probably the quickest and simplest way I could put it into words. Instinctively, I'm against it, but I haven't. It's just popped up this morning, so I haven't had a proper read of the full proposal. I think the general punter underestimates how important it is to have as much liquidity in a pool as possible. I think that should be the bigger focus is the volume, because there are people out there who would look at something like Splinterlands and they'd say, right, if I go to the market and I got $1 million, I did well on Ethereum, I'm going to put $1 million into this SPS token. They're going to move the market a lot if they buy up $1 million worth of SPS at the moment, right?
Yeah.
They might double or triple the price. I haven't looked at the stats, right? So then all they're doing is pushing up the price for themselves, and that reduces their certainty or their confidence that they could then sell back if they wanted to. Effectively, they're almost becoming owners in the game, like me buying more flash columns, right? It's like, well, I'm already committed to not being able to sell these for what I'm buying them for. It's kind of like that with somebody huge buying into SPS, and that's about market liquidity. You want to have it there because you don't want somebody with massive, big, fat bags looking at your project and going, well, look, I can't easily actually buy in, right? I can't do this. And we saw this with the HBD proposal that Holazor put up. A lot of the misgivings about it was, well, can we buy this much HBD? Can we buy 250 grand with HBD without pushing up the price or affecting the Hive price or becoming part owners in the Hive ecosystem, because there's not enough liquidity there and there's not enough demand for HBD. So my big concern is we need to keep that door wide open, the door to enter Splinterlands and the door to leave. And a lot of people are reluctant. They're like, I don't want to provide exit liquidity, but it's the same doorway, right? The liquidity that somebody's using to leave is what somebody else is able to use to buy in. So I like a big wide doorway, and I think if the DAO starts taking its share of the rewards, and that's going to disincentivize others and potentially reduce the size of the liquidity pool, I think that should be a deal breaker for me personally. But again, haven't read the proposal. I just Bob, you just mentioned it just before we started recording. So sorry for my lack of preparation there. So I will read the proposal and I might be turned around completely, but instinctively at first look, I'd say I'm a no.
Well, the Yays have it at the moment at 73 to 27.
So the only reason why I'm personally against it is, okay, for starters, I guess if you want liquidity, ETH and Binance, is it, are the biggest chains for probably that. But for the same reason, that's why I'm against it. I don't like Binance and I don't like ETH. That's it. That's the only reason why I don't like it. But I understand why others do, because there's a lot of liquidity there. But it's this weird thing. It's like, I understand that, but I just don't like those chains. It's just a personal thing. So yeah, that's why I voted down.
I'm not a fan of either of the two myself.
Mm.
Yeah. I, my mind just boggles every time like someone starts raving on about this ETH project. And it's like, have you not heard of Hive? It's like free transactions, 3 seconds. I actually reposted something on my blog a little while ago from who was it? It was about like Hive being taken on, and how easy it is for a retailer to accept Hive. A retailer of any kind, from a coffee shop
Mhm.
to, I mean, like I pay $3.50 for a coffee, and if I use my card, it ends up costing me $4 for a coffee. Because and yeah, sure, no, the merchant needs to actually cover the fees that the bank's charging them. But how easy would it be to just send Hive HB? It's instant; they can see it straight away. And this even shows you, like this article, how to set up the QR code to receive payments and your retail outlet. How easy is that to do? And
And
why
how
aren't more people doing it?
and how good is Hive where you just need to send to the name? No massive long ass
String
code.
of
No, it's just
ridiculous. Yep.
so. Oh, what's the business name? Oh, okay, yeah, latte specials or I don't know, whatever. Just put that in. That's it. That's all. Yeah, and
Exactly.
QR even quicker. QR even quicker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I often think the only reason that Hive it isn't seeing the the joys that the ETH networks are getting is just no one knows about it. Because if you did
Or
know about
yeah,
it, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
I think ETH has like this mafia because there's all the big dogs there and they want to keep it there. So once you have like this sort of like gridlock mafia, like, oh, we're this and we don't use any other chains. The reason why Ethers is probably as big as it is because everyone stays there, right? Because it has its name, it has its reputation. Like you
Yeah.
said, Hive doesn't, and you have a lot of like people who will die on that hill, on that ETH hill. Even though I don't think it's that great to look, to look at, but many do.
Yeah.
Many think it's a wonderful
Yeah.
hill.
It's human
It's
nature.
just
We
like the
find what
SEC
we're looking
mafia.
for.
Mm,
Yeah, we find what we're looking for, and then we stop looking, right?
yeah.
And that's where a lot of people went, oh, Bitcoin's okay. Is there anything that does more? Then they found Ethereum and went, okay, yeah, cool, I'm burrowing like a tick. And that's all well and good, but at some point you need to look around and say, okay, it's minor improvements. Maybe I'm not going to jump ship. But if it's enough improvement, if there's enough, if we move far enough beyond that, then I'm gonna miss out if I don't dive on this new thing. So, but yeah, this Ethereum's a perfect example of how a project will have its own gravity, right? And then every punter in that ecosystem stays because of every other punter. I scroll through Facebook, every second post is an ad. I see random crap I don't want to see. I get close friends post really important stuff. I never see it unless I click on their profile and go to it. But we all stay because that's where everyone we know is. But if we all left, well, yeah. So that's where I think once you have that monopoly, that natural monopoly, that gravity of all those two, the network effect, then it's so much easier to stay in that commanding position. And that's one of the reasons that I really like Splinterlands, right? So Hive is kind of great, but hasn't been able to attract that attention. But Splinterlands, as far as Web3 gaming goes, is the number one. It's the most played. It's got the most attention, and so we don't have some other big Death Star hanging over us, pulling away any interest. We are the Death Star, right? We are that big. We are the big project with its own gravity. So hopefully that continues to do us well. And even if somebody comes along with a better product, right? It's a AAA studio. They've got a real pretty game with really in-depth gameplay. Then they get to be the Hive in that situation where we're like, well, we'll however we can, we'll steal whatever's good about your project, but we've got the crowd, which is what really matters.
What I would like to see is cross chaining as well, eventually from Splinterlands to be on other chains, because it's possible. It's not impossible. You know, the more chains, the more likely of success. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
It's already doing that with Blitz, isn't he?
Yeah,
It's
he's
cross
gonna.
chaining because the unique identifier of the NFTs are not locked to an IP. So
Yeah,
cross chaining is possible.
yeah. I think that'd be cool. That's all. That's
So
all I
with
gotta say.
like, talking about the the mafias, and the SEC mafia trying to keep crypto down. It's the same
Mm.
thing with the ticks burrowed in on the ETH hill, in that all of the fat controllers of the world, that they've got their everything in the stock markets. They control it, they affect it. So the last thing they want is people not using it. Same with the fiat currency systems around the world. If everyone just stopped
Mm.
using it, that they have no power whatsoever. And just it's just like the Facebook, people whinge and whine and complain, but they keep using it, or they whinge, whine, and complain on Facebook about Facebook. I mean, I left Facebook 7 years ago or something. In fact, as soon as I discovered Steam, I left Facebook. But yeah, it's that move. People just, even at a job, you're absolutely sick of the job. You're literally physically sick, vomiting, going. You can't, but you just keep going because the fear of leaving and looking for something else is just too much for some people. In fact, I did an article with one of my students recently on Cambly about Japanese culture, and there was this article about this firm that's established like a company that specializes in helping people quit their jobs, because it's just so far out of the paradigm in Japanese culture to quit a job.
Yeah.
Like they have, physical abuse. Managers walk around with a cane, hitting people. Absolute tyranny of verbal abuse in front of, and people just put up with it because the only option is to quit, and the stigma associated with quitting a job is just too much. So yeah, this guy, he had like 2 experiences of physical abuse in the workplace from the managers and stuff. That he left. He set up this firm to help other people quit their job. And just reading the article, it's so far out of what is the status. I mean, in Australia, people are pretty good at quitting their jobs. But even like England and America, it's still stigma. And you watch a movie from the 70s or something like that, and even like divorce or relationships. If as a woman, if you were divorced, it was an incredibly shameful position. You would be shunned by your peers, by your family, because you're so awful that your husband divorced you. Now those stigmas, I don't know if it's because we all started with the convicts here, or apparently, but we've never had that class status. It does exist. It's very subtle, and you'll see the ripples of it. You don't see it itself, but you can see the ripples moving through the matrix. But because of that casualness of the layback culture, I guess it's a shock to see how something so perverse in our way of life is status quo somewhere else. But you don't know what's going through the minds of people when we say, "Oh, but Hive, look at it, do it. Why wouldn't you?" You don't know what's going on in their programming, their operating system. So yeah, that was a bit of a soapbox
No,
tyranny,
it's all good.
wasn't
Well,
it?
this is why the grassroots efforts in places like Sucre in Venezuela, where there's a couple of hundred people on the ground now that are using it and have no alternative, and that's when you really thrive, right? Is when they have no alternative and you're the best option. So I really feel by the end of the year that could be 500 to 1,000 people using it, right? And then it hits critical mass. At that point, nobody can actually stop it. Then they can legislate, they can do whatever, but people are still going to continue to use it, especially when there's no trust in fiat issued currency. So I think we've got a bright future. Just again, we just got to wait for it to materialize. Not everyone's as quick to recognize the beauty and exquisite efficiency of this chain.
Yeah.
And it seems like the third
Mexico's
world's picking it up.
yeah,
You know,
they are,
the
really
third
are.
world, yeah. So it'll start there because no one here, they're all comfy around in the West. They already have their hill. So yeah, they in like South America, they're still trying to establish a damn hill. Like, there's nothing established really, right?
Comes down to the hunger, like Matt put it before. In the West, which just people just aren't hungry enough. And I always love to give the analogy of the dog on the nail. The two farmers sitting out on the porch on their rocking chairs, going back and forth, and a hound dog sitting there just whining and whining and whining. And one guy says, "Man, what's wrong with your dog?" He says, "Oh, he's lying on a nail." I says, "Well, why doesn't he just get up and move?" He says, "Oh, it doesn't hurt that much. It's just enough to whinge and whine about it."
Totally get it.
And on Hive, on the Hive Mexico, I've been following them because and there's so many posts on there of just like 2 or 3 people doing seminars and filling 30 chairs, and just like under an umbrella somewhere out in the open, just with a whiteboard, and someone's recording it on their mobile phone. But two or 3 people get together, they promote these seminars, and they're filling 30 chairs at a time. And this is happening like this is what it's going to, and maybe this is why empires rise and fall, just complacency. And after the next reset, because every time there's a reset, the power shifts to somewhere else. This system we've got, the matrix that is currently dominating, is going to fall, and it'll rise somewhere else, and we'll have that golden age utopia for a while until they become complacent and revolution happens somewhere else again.
I like to think that each time the common man gets better off, though. Technology improves, and we get more of a share of that pie, of that power, that self-determination, compared to the serfs in the Middle Ages. And the difference between their power and the king's power. I think I'm a lot closer to Albo than the average schmuck was 500 years ago to the king at the time. So I think those revolutions happen.
If you can believe that. If history,
well, yeah, true. If it's
That's
history true, but at a meta level, I think the common man sees improvement as a long-term trend.
Yeah. So what I was saying, like, you'd think, how advanced we are, right? Like surely we can sort out our shit. But no, that's why I think there's always going to be a 50-50 split. There's going to be people trying to sabotage the ways of systems that should work fine, right? And that's why, I don't know. That's what I think. There's always some interference with another side. I don't know. I could be wrong, but yeah.
I think, well, you guys know, and probably some of the viewers know, I'm a huge fan of the alternative history of prior to this current empire that we exist within at the moment. Even as little as 200-300 years ago, like history has been so bastardized. And you look at the structures, the exact same style of building right across the world, every country from South America, North America, China, Japan, Ethiopia, Pakistan, England, every single country all over the world. You look at what's been at the post office, the cathedral, a university, these buildings are identical right across the world, and they have this particular architecture on their spires that is like ether collectors. And you get really old black and white photos, and for some of the first video archives we have access to, wireless trams running around everywhere with antennas on the roof. So we had this unified world where free energy, just extracting energy from the ether until the current system took over. And what holds most people back, and I think this is maybe something they've learnt since the last reset, is we're all slaves to power. Power as in like electricity for like just we have to pay for it. You can only have so much, and how much you get, how much you're entitled to, is based as a reward on how much you participate in their system. You can't do that if everyone has access to free energy. So I think this is the energy trap is the main focus if you want to break out of the system. That's why all these people are going off grid, looking at off grid living. But if Waco taught us one thing, it's like if you get too far in that realm, then they're going to come for you. And what are you going to do when they come for you if it's just your little isolated community? But yeah, the power trap I think needs to be one of the first obstacles to be overcome.
Well, think about the buildings we build today under this very system, under like our reward system. Like you have to have this money to pay for this electricity. If you don't have that, fuck you, right? But back then, they're building megalithic buildings for free, let's say. So they mustn't have been under the same systems we are today. Like the value that we like our cash society and all that probably didn't dictate what they could do. You'd have to be a free society to create something of that, to that degree. All around the world as well, in countries that we look at today and go like, they're dirt poor. Like this country's been obviously robbed for everything that it had, right? It's been pillaged, it's been stripped, like, right?
Yeah. And these massive megalithic structures on a tiny little island, where the structure takes up the entirety of the island. Like, how do you build something like megalithic on this tiny little island?
Logistics. It's a nightmare.
Yeah. And even like in North America, look at these massive, huge buildings, and you look at photos of the day where it's this, and the streets are all mud, and people are getting around in horse and cart. Now, how many horses do you need to pull a wagon with a 10-ton block of stone or rock on it? And how do you build up to the height that these things are huge, these massive old world buildings, but the people at the time, they're all in like horse and cart. Like those people did not build those buildings.
Because they have shacks right next to these things. They literally have little
wooden shacks. Yep. So our current population, we inherited these buildings. And when you look deeply into it, especially in Australia and New Zealand, and particularly Dunedin in New Zealand, we don't have the timeline that they have in Europe and North America to say, it was the Romans, it was the Greeks, it was them, it was this. And you look at, because there's a good documentary I watched on like the first ships in Sydney. When you look at what they arrived with, they didn't even have building tools. It was something they forgot. The building tools came on the second fleet. They had no craftsmen. They had no architects. It was just basic settlers and convicts to build. And within 5 years, they've got these massive buildings, like huge, that are still standing today in the city as architectural wonders beyond what we're building today. Our timeline doesn't fit for that. And especially like trees, native trees in Australia are only good for firewood. You cannot build with them. That's why we import all of our lumber, all of our timber. You cannot build with the native trees. They're just firewood. Where did all the resources come from? Where did all the bricks come from? And again, they'd get all these all around the world. The photos where you see these old buildings of huge structures, people are getting around in horse and cart. Like those people did not build those buildings.
They just settled on an already built city, or
Yeah.
half built at least, right?
Look,
Like
we
we'll keep some
founded a
structures.
city.
Yeah.
We founded a city.
Yeah.
Righty, so to swing things back around into a Splinterlands favour, I have some rewards to claim on my main account and silver account. We can take a look at that.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right.
So while Bob does that, what have we been all up to in this game? I've bought some reward cards myself and all that.
I maxed out River Hollandaise. I'm going to call him Hollandaise from now on. Because that
Hollandale, yeah,
resurrect,
Hollandaise.
that resurrect has just worked me too many times with water teams and martyrs.
And
You get
Inspire.
some, yeah. So you get some gangster, like a target practice rule set, and you get some real savage beast up the front, and then like a demon shark, and then just put your martyr there, and then Helendale somewhere in the back, and then the martyr gets resurrected twice, and you just turn your front card into absolute psycho. So
Absolutely.
I'm sick
All
of
right.
dying to
So
that.
let's-
So yeah.
If we do these claims, so I don't push myself further into the next day, because once you've claimed it,
Oh, yeah. That's
Oh
right.
yeah,
They
that's all changed, hasn't it?
they have the change now. 12 p.m. UTC, which is 10 or 11 here. I just looked it up
Ah.
before.
so that's why. Because I thought it was like it was
Yeah.
an hour earlier than normal, so no wonder.
Mm.
All right, so nothing particularly spectacular there, but two Ferox
No,
defenders and
That's
two.
nice. Idris, man. Idris is where it's
Yeah.
at. Yeah.
Yeah. Entries the bomb with the
9.9.
Yep.
I know since I've gone into gold 2, I've dropped down to 11
Yes.
as my multiplier.
The rating.
And, yeah, once I get into gold 1, this rating drops down to 9.
Yeah, it would.
So, and it really sucks because you can't stop yourself.
I
So to
know.
maximize on the rewards, I need to not go into gold 1. And the only way to
Yeah.
do that is to throw a few battles,
Mm.
So if with this
I think
new
the idea
system,
is that I think the idea is because it's quadratic, the higher you go, yes, it does increase your decrease your multiplier, but the higher you go, the more you're getting as a base rate because it's calculated off a higher rating. But yeah, there's those tiers where you go, well, right at the very top of gold 2, I'm probably with my multiplier, I'm probably going to get more than right at the bottom of gold 3. But I don't think it'd take too long. I'm sure Matt's got the maths sorted where it shouldn't take too long in gold 1 to get to the point where you're higher now in gold 1 in that 9 times multiplier tier where you're getting more. But yeah, it is frustrating.
That's why I'm quite happy to be in I'm in wild at the moment, and I might stay there because I'm versing harder people which keep my rating lower for gold 1. So, right? Yeah. So if I can get,
Yeah. And you're still
Yeah.
competing, you're still having fun and enjoying it, but you're coming up against tougher opponents and losing a few more. I've played one match in ranked in modern, and that that was by accident. So I got I'm on 15.2 as a multiplier, but that's in gold 2, right?
Nice.
So and that's with 2.5 million staked SPS. So it peters off like quite a lot, right? Like it doesn't.
Yeah.
That whole I'm not getting a 37 times multiplier because I got millions of SPS. So there's definitely that sweet spot where beyond that you're kind of just wasting potential. So I'm going to have to look at renting out some of my SPS, which when you look at it, it'll probably be another 5,000 deck a day that I can get from renting it out. So it's like, well, it's pointless not to, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm at 2,500 rating. At gold 1 wild, and right now my multiplier is at 12.47. So yeah, it's pretty good. And I have to thank. Yeah, go on.
Tails went into the math on one of his latest streams as well, in the fact that you're decentivized now for even playing in the leaderboard.
Yeah.
'Cause
How does that
even
work?
when you
Higher
find
rating.
your when you find, because it's rating based, so when you find
Yeah.
your sweet spot, if you stay in that league and as your rating goes up the leaderboard, your multiplier is dropping down.
Mm-hmm. It is.
That's interesting. Unless you increase your staked SPS, I guess.
Yeah. So
Because
which
there's a point
if,
where you drop. There's a point where you drop
oh,
below,
here we
where
are.
if you're in silver,
Nice.
nice. If you're in silver, you could easily have too much staked SPS, and then you're getting the diminishing returns like what I'm seeing. So there's definitely a sweet spot for your staked SPS and your
Exactly.
your tier that you're playing in. Yeah.
So at 2,500, I got a multiplier of like 12 point whatever 47. But when I go to like at the end of the season, I was at 2,800 in rating, and it was like 9 or 10 around there. So it was like normal, right?
Yep.
No, actually it would drop. It was 9. It's in the nines, like 9.7, 9 point something.
Yep. Well, I'm getting basically 2 to 4 SPS per win
Oof.
at the moment. But there's a lot of gold cards, a few alphas in there, and like I say, the
True.
15x multiplier I guess is substantially more than the 8, or the 8 or 9, that sort of level. But yeah, it's not, like I say, 35, 40 times that you'd think if staked SPS was just an unlimited ticket to earn on wins, then yeah, I'd be getting 15 SPS or 20 SPS per win, and I'm not getting that. So yeah, I think the delegating myself down to a sweet spot is probably the best way to go.
I think so.
I just wanted to give it a week or so. I wanted to give it a week or so to let the market settle down and see what the pricing's at. And there's a few decent prices getting out there, so
There are.
we'll see. I'm reluctant
with the
to rent to
ratings,
bots.
with the ratings system, most people are going to be playing in the league to get that 10x multiplier. So basically just to keep earning what you were earning before. And so, but just playing in your league, your rating keeps going up if you keep winning.
Yeah, I know.
It's like at the moment, it's generally everything's stacked against you. Unless you're playing in a league lower than what your SPS will allow you for your 10x return. I
So
think
where
this really needs to be relooked at. I really do.
Yeah, because where I am now, at least for this far into the season, which is real early, I'm around that 25 to 2,700 mark, which isn't bad on my on the X amount of rewards that I'm getting. But once I get over like 2,800, yeah, I see like a difference, right? There's a noticeable drop in multiplier.
But I guess the multiplier is only one part of the equation, because there's the multiplier and then there's what it's multiplying. And if your rating increase is sufficient to offset that, and then maybe even then some, that's why I think looking at your SPS earnings is a really important part of that.
2 SPS roughly, yeah.
Yeah, but that's where you want to say, okay, if you're reluctant to go up into Diamond 3, for example, because I'm dropping from a 9 times multiplier down to a 7.
Yeah.
Forget about looking at the multiplier and just look at because I think the multiplier is really only just displayed to inspire you to stake more SPS, right? Instead of looking at the multiplier, look at the actual wins, right? What did you get as far as the SPS for that battle? Because that to me is what matters, right? That's the take home. Yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Is there a way I can pull up that data at the moment?
You could just go into your view,
Rewards?
how do you?
Currency activity?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, try that. Maybe.
Yeah, it could be in there. SPS for battle rewards. You might.
That's it.
You might. Yeah. Or keep a
Battle
spreadsheet. What's my rating? What was my rating when I won? How much SPS did I win? Obviously, there's a difference there in cards, though. So there's going to be some noise in your data, because if you get a low mana match and you play some regular foil cards, then you get a high mana match and you play alpha gold foils. Well, there's going to be a big difference in that. Yeah.
So this doesn't show what I'm getting for battles. How can I see what my battle returns have been?
You might just have to track it as you're doing it.
Yeah,
or just scroll back through your battle log and your last 30 matches.
Yeah, and you look at the verse symbol and it shows up with SPS 1. Yeah, so I'm getting roughly average around 2 when I'm using all the cards that are right for that level, like they're all
Yep.
maxed out level. Yeah,
So I'm getting 1.9
that's
SPS
great. Yeah,
for winning a battle.
Yeah.
0.6.
yeah, it's good.
So why
Mhm.
why is this one 1.9 and this one's 0.6? Is that because of
Well,
my opponent's
It's the cards that you
rating?
have. It's the cards that you have.
Yeah. So your ratings points increase or decrease matters what your opponent has, but
Yeah.
as far as your actual battle rewards, it doesn't matter whether he surrenders, whether he's high, low, whatever. It's all based in where you're at and what cards you use to beat him.
Right. So in this case here, plus 22 rating, 1.9 SPS, and plus 22k RP.
Yep. You have a gold
And
foil.
this one,
Mm-hmm.
so 7k RP versus 22k RP,
Yeah, you're using a
0.6
stock card.
SPS.
You're using a standard card. There's an opportunity card in there. If you look at the card name, Bob, if you
Which
to the
one?
left.
Yeah, which card?
Second, third, fourth from Tarsa on the there you go. You got a level 1 parasitic growth that affects RP rating and rewards drastically. Oh,
Right.
and the level 1 Scorch Fiend. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Okay. Whereas in this one, level
exactly.
6,
Level 3. You
3
yeah
gold legendary though.
yeah. But yeah,
6, 8, 8, 5. Right.
yeah. It makes the biggest difference, man. Makes the biggest difference.
But it's
And
not
that's where
that
even
much.
like Marta cards where you're like, well, he's just there for Marta. I don't care.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to be more inspired to level them up with your chest wins because
Exactly.
they're going to give you less of a haircut to you for using underleveled cards for your league, right? You're
Yep.
just throwing a 1 BCX Marta. It's like, well,
100%.
yeah, that's great. You're more likely to win, but you're hurting your earnings.
Absolutely. I'd rather have all my cards rated and maxed out for that league. That's what I'd rather.
Yeah, especially if you're not too concerned about winning because you kind of want to stay where you are anyway. You want to tread water. Then it's like, well, look, I'm going to go for max rewards, and if I lose, I lose because I didn't play that 1 BCX Marta.
Yeah.
It's very different trying to get your head around the different structures and how to assess risk and reward. But it's good. It's interesting. Keeps us on our toes. You guys see the town hall was really interesting yesterday morning our time.
Andy.
It's looking like clearing land might be off the agenda, and it's essentially a case of if you want to switch from one use to another, you need to build a building for that use. So it might be a bog standard level 1 building, but you need to say, right, I want a grain on this plot, and there's no more clearing anymore. Putting a grain building on that plot is your clearing, and it's also your minimum requirement to get grain. So Farpatrad was in the land expansion Discord chat clarifying some stuff. So it looks like, because I've been thinking with land surfing, I got 1,000 plots I'm not using.
Yeah.
Do I need to go through and clear them all before surfers can arrive, or do they clear it and then risk I just kick them off, right?
True.
There's always that risk there. So it's like, well, what's going on there? So he said there's more information to come. It looks like they're getting rid of clearing as a concept and just saying whenever you want to start going for any resource, you need to build that building type on that land.
Okay.
And that then means if you want to switch types, there's might be more involved than just a 24-hour cooldown on your cards to switch to, okay, we're going from SPS to grain or whatever else. So that's
There's
probably
a
more
penalty
consideration.
There.
Yeah,
and
that's probably more of a consideration for people who only have a couple of plots and they're trying to work out. That's where you wouldn't want to have 2 plots, right? Because then you're like, oh, grain, SPS, and you're umming and ahhing. When you have plenty of plots, when you got 6, 7, 9, whatever, then you've got the option to just go, right, this plot's just going to be grain forever. I'm not going to mess with it. I'm not going to play with it. Might swap in occasionally better cards if I have them, but I'm just gonna focus on grain with that plot and do whatever else with the others. So that's interesting. But he said there's more details on land surfing to come. So yeah, fingers crossed. It's not a huge imposition for me to get my vast tracts of land ready for
You're like,
surfers or not a huge imposition for them. But I am more than happy to come to the party and publicly declare, go, look, if you come and build a building on one of my plots, on one of my common or rare plots in my 2 regions, I will leave you alone for 2 years. And I'm more than happy to do that, right? And just go, right, that's I'm just putting my foot down here. And instead of going with some guy with no that nobody knows, an anonymous person, I think this is one of those times when it benefits you to be a known face and name in the game, because then you can say, hey, everyone, I'm declaring this is what's happening. And everyone goes, wow, this guy who we all know his name and face is staking his reputation on doing this. We know he's going to do it now. And if you, where are you going to build, right? The guy over there who's an anonymous, again, Dragon Smasher 3000, or are you going to go with Matt Clark, who's said this publicly that he's going to leave you alone for 2 years? So that's not a promise. 2 years, by the way. I'm not making that promise now. I'm just speculating. We need more information, but that's definitely something I'd be interested in. And that's where you leverage your reputation, right? And that's not something that you can really anticipate in advance. But I think it's one of the benefits, the assumed potential future benefits of being somebody who's been around for a while, is known to act ethically and that type of thing.
we all love fair landlords, don't we? You know, we like good landlords and not arsehole ones. So yeah,
Yeah.
I can understand that.
And look, it's not even about being a good person, right? You just as well paint it up to greed and say, well, look, I want the 50% when that schmuck over there is not going to get.
True,
I want your 50%, not him. But it's just an advantage of, I guess, reputation, having a history of doing what you said you were going to do.
Yeah. What's your take, Bob?
I haven't been keeping up with that because like it's still something for down the track. I'm still trying to get my head around the staking and comfort level, and every day with battling, I'm learning the effects. So the whole land thing is still something like to deal with when it gets here.
Yeah.
And at this point, like Matt said, like there's a lot of speculation. We still need a lot of info.
Absolutely.
So if I get my head around what data is available at the moment and then it changes, I'm just way too consumed at the moment with the whole SPS staking and working out if I try this, what's happening? Okay.
Yeah.
What about if I try this? What's happening? So it's actually real life, real time effects and results on changes that I'm making to try and really work out where I'm best at.
Yeah, that's fair. If you look in eye candy in the Splinterlands server,
Yeah.
you can see like the new sort of like how like
Faces.
staking your card, how it's gonna look. I like it. I think it's awesome. Yeah. I can't wait. I reckon it's just gonna add so much more depth to the game. Yep. It's gonna be a new game, basically. A game within a game.
My my
Speaking
rentals
of
have
depth,
absolutely plummeted too since I pulled because I've gone to wild because my modern ranking is still too high, even
I
though
know.
you've
Same.
got back to each season. So playing in wild,
Yep.
so I pulled all of my A's and B's out of my rental account to play with. My level 5s and 6s, I'm playing them in Bobber and Gold, and the 3s and 4s, I'm playing on Tartaria and Silver. But now my rental account is
It's butchered.
I'm getting like 8 deck a day.
But no one's really killing it on rentals anyway now. Like they're so much lower than where they were. I mean, maybe it's not so bad to play with them instead, you know? Matt?
yeah, I had a rebound in my rentals actually. They were down from they were max at about 13,000 a day, and they dropped down to like 2,000 or 3,000 a day, and they're back up to around 6 last time I checked yesterday. So it's not bad. Peak monsters seem to be doing okay with the. I mean, it's a lot of money worth of cards if you look at it, the sticker price, but. Yeah, so I'm happy if at the moment if it's 6 to maybe 7,000 a day. It all adds up and I can do stuff with it. But something I wanted to mention, Gio, when I started talking and I accidentally muted to Steve. Speaking of eye candy, I noticed a girl on Twitter got retweeted. I think she's one of the new promotional exercises that we Bob, I shared a link to her Twitter in our chat if you want to pull it up. and I think we looked at the Ali Straza thing,
Yeah.
and she was great and a good ambassador.
Yeah.
But she was. It was, here's a limited time period where you're gonna push our game, and it's hard to know how many people we attracted and how. But I think they're going for a broader sort of hit half a dozen people that have maybe smaller followings, but for a longer period. I think might be more of the focus. So she's been posting a bit. I replied to one of her tweets. She's in like bronze, whatever, bronze league, I think, or silver, saying, okay, what am I doing wrong here, and all of that. So I think it's more about getting a more manageable lower end streamer who perhaps wants to build their profile in the game, right? So that it's not so much about, okay, you've got an audience now, we're going to pay you some money so that we can have access to your audience. It's more about, okay, we have a potential audience for you here, so let's pay you a sustainable amount of money, right, for a long-term arrangement, and you can then build your viewer base off of our existing player base, right? More of a mutually agreeable, mutually beneficial situation. So less money has to change hands, right? Like if Splinterlands devs say, hey, look, we've got 100,000 people playing our game. Do you want to be a famous streamer? Do you want to boost your own profile? Well, then it becomes and that I think is far more sustainable. I'd like to see a lot more of that. But
I think it's the right choice, to target them, right? Like in that way. Also, I like how we've swapped from one alley to another. Just
is it Ellie as well? I didn't even notice it. Oh, this is Ellie. This is Ellie.
Right.
So we're working. Yeah.
Our eyes are up here, Matt.
Yeah. No, look, personally, I think you do have to more so target good-looking women. To be honest, I reckon they get a lot of
views,
a lot of watches, views, a
yeah,
lot of
we're
eyes.
talking about it. Yeah, we're talking about it in Discord. You almost don't want like supermodel hot, because it can be a little bit intimidating. You kind of just want approachable, normal, just a cute, smiley, non-intimidating girl. I think that approachability is
not intimidating. You got a kickboxer.
Yeah, like a full MMA fighter. I was looking at that. I was like, okay, dope.
Yeah. I mean, in general, I don't know about this. I haven't looked closely at this particular girl, but I think the idea of somebody who's not too glammed up and made up and wearing evening wear and all of that, but just tracksuit pants. And like you look at Hex, Stephanie Bendixson, who's been popular here in Australia for a long time, and I mean, don't get me wrong, she's attractive, but she's also not like prima donna. She's very, you walk past her in the street and go, hang on, was that Hex? Rather than, which is far more, I think, approachable and appealing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
and if we can get 10 of them, for a year, for what we're paying for somebody who's got a big entrenched audience already, we can never know what the Ali Straza experiment delivered. I'm sure Chatter has some figures and numbers, but even then, that's just an estimate, right? Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I don't really remember what I was going to say anyway. So
it's all right. I'm just trying to we've had a lot going on, so I'm trying to churn through the topics. GLG launched. I haven't had a close look at it yet. I just kind of woke up and jumped on this call, but so that looks pretty cool. I don't know. I haven't looked at the pricing to see if there's been any response to that, but it's apparently a bit of.
CS has dropped back down to 2.3 after the initial pump.
Okay.
Bit of a correction, because it went up to 2.5 straight after that SEC ruling. And of course, when stuff like that happens, there's always an overshoot. And it went down to 2.4 for a couple of days, and now it seems to settle on 2.3, which is still up on the 17 where it was.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Look, I'm happy, man. I'm up either way right now on SPS anyway. So it's a good feeling.
I think you got in right at the bottom.
The first purchase, the second one
perfectly.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Really good.
Whereas I put 1K Aussie in at 2.2. But yeah,
fill up.
I think you jagged it right at the right point. The rock bottom is when you put your money in. Well done on that one.
Yeah, or the recent rock bottom, like the most of the recent rock bottoms. Yeah, I think.
But I mean, if you're back in the black now, Bob, and you've had staking rewards and vouchers and stuff come from that since then
Still
it's
ahead.
like, well, yeah, exactly. You can always kick yourself for not picking the bottom, but then you can kick yourself for winning and only winning a bit too. The years I spent bemoaning that I recognized Bitcoin was going to be great. I only put in this, and maybe I could have taken out a loan and then paid back the
True.
loan slowly over time, and I could have put in more, and I'd have 5 times as much. It's like you can play those games forever, right? And you just gotta forgive yourself and kick some dirt over it and move on. Just like standing at the track going, oh, if I'd have picked number 7 in race 12 and backed him and mortgaged my house to back him, then it's like, so yes, of course, we all know that.
Hindsight, bro. Hindsight.
Exactly.
So great, isn't it?
Exactly. And there's so many currents and forces that you just can't.
Yeah.
Even the best horse experts will look at a horse and they'll go, oh, yeah, this feel like he's and the stats all good. But then there's so much going on that you don't know about the background. And especially true in heavily manipulated markets like crypto. So do you make your best decision you can at the time, and don't let it break your brain and take over your life, right? I mean, we're doing this stuff to hopefully have a happy life. One day down the track, we all moon, we've all got Lambos, we're going sideways, supermodels, all of that stuff. That's all well and good. We're here to improve our lives, but if the day-to-day experiences of staring at a screen, refresh, why is it not happening? Tears streaming down your face, that's the opposite of what you wanted.
Yeah.
You and I were watching the SPS during the little pump after the SEC ruling, and when it went from 2.3 to 2.4 with 42k SPS staked, that 0.1 of a cent equated to $7 US. Just 0.1, go, oh wow, 0.1 of a cent, $7 US, and then you compare to that what you get from the bank for a whole year, in interest on your life savings.
Yeah.
That's if they let you deposit it. You see this guy he deposited his own cash at Westpac. He said it wasn't a huge sum of money, but they froze his accounts until he explained where he got the cash from. He's a professional poker player. I'll share a link. A professional poker player, but he said, I'm not telling you where I got the cash from. It's me. I deposited it into an ATM. I did 2-factor authentication on my mobile phone. I'm standing in the branch with the manager with my ID. I'm telling you it's my money. Put it in my account and unfreeze it. And they're like, no, you gotta tell us where it's from. He said, well, give me names. Put it in writing. No, we're not putting it in writing, and we're not telling you our names. Just some guys on the phone who are in charge of it all. It's like, that's some creepy Orwellian shit, right? Like.
It boils
Crazy.
down to the fact if you're using fiat currency, it's not yours. You don't own it.
Exactly.
It is always the property of the Reserve Bank. So stop using
it. And they don't mind as long as you're transferring digital dollars around in bank accounts, right? And that's fine. That's cool because that's all tracked and known and all of that. But as soon as you start dealing in cash, they're like, no. So I think we're going to move to a situation where people are going to pay for things in cash and never deposit it into the bank, which seems to be the way to go, right? Just never deposit the cash into the bank. Keep it circulating in the economy. Keep the cash economy going. If somebody pays you in cash, just sit on it until you need to pay somebody else in cash, and never let it touch a bank account, because it seems like putting it in is a massive nightmare, and then trying to take it out again is a massive nightmare. So it's almost like the banking system's trying to isolate itself from cash and
they don't want cash.
Redundant.
They want their CBD, CCBG, TCs. That's what they want. They don't give a shit about cash anymore. They want it out. It's bad for them. They don't actually know the true supply of things, like how much cash is actually out there, right?
And every note that gets deposited, right, is a note that can be destroyed by the bank. Exactly. They can go, well, this is out of circulation now. But if we look at this and spread the word, hey, this is a nightmare getting it into banks. It's a nightmare getting it out. Let's just have two identities. I've got my cash identity, which is whatever's stuffed under the mattress, and I've got my bank account identity, which is all the, surface legitimate stuff. But I think they're shooting themselves in the foot, because we're just gonna not do this anymore. We're not going to deposit it in the bank because it's safer under the mattress, where you only possibly might get robbed, instead of getting the guarantee of getting robbed when you deposit it into the bank.
But that's the
What are we
thing.
looking at there, Bob? Sorry,
Yeah,
Jeff.
No, go on, go on.
it was about last time I staked, it was 1.2 cents. And it's now down to 0.9 of a cent. So it's done the same thing as SPS. It had that little pump after the SEC ruling, and now it's sort of settled at 0.9. But I think going back a little, it was as down as 0.7 of a cent. So, but nothing to write home about at this point in time. That's the
Well,
GLX.
Did you hear
And
that Lionel Messi signed on with Miami?
Yeah, that's huge news for us.
So I know it's not the same organization as Genesis League is with up with, but I don't know, man. It's a step closer. I mean, something could happen where little partnerships. Hey, dude, would you like to be on a game or like this game? You know, just that's all it takes. If his card was in this game, you watch the price, just pump just because of his name.
Sorry, will his card not be in the game? I thought it's the deal with the Major League Soccer Players Association, which he would assumedly join when he comes to Miami.
So is it okay? That's where I thought it wasn't the same. But if it's the same, well, that's even better. Yeah, that's even better. Okay,
I reckon it is. Yeah.
Well, time to get some GLX then. Yeah.
Well, GLX is say 0.09, but the LBGT price is 2.3.
Oh, well, I don't know what the GLGT is though.
As I know, I've got no idea, but LBGT, it's so similar. This is what you get as a reward for staking the GLX. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, so there's a couple of tokens. There's GLUSD, which is the pegged US dollar variant, but the GLGT is, I think, like the voucher. If you picture vouchers in the Splinterlands ecosystem, so it's the token you get for staking the main token.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
I'm not sure what use cases it has right now, but I think it did get a decent price. I had like $70 worth, and I sold them into probably to buy a Splinterlands card. So I'm not sure what the use case is for them at the moment, but maybe are they licensed? No, that's staked rewards, licensed rewards. Yeah, it's the vouchers of the GLS ecosystem.
But yeah, it could be. I don't know, man. 9 cents is it?
0.9 of a cent at the moment, and it went up to 1.2. But what did it start at when they launched? Well, not launched, but the pre-launch or whatever you want to call it.
I sold at 20
like 5
cents.
cents? 20 cents.
I sold at 20, but I think it went to like higher than that, like 20, 30 something cent. I don't know, around there. We just have to look at the chart, I guess.
Yeah, I don't sell for the first 12 months of an airdrop. I just let it happen. Because I maintain somebody's going to run the report before they do another airdrop, and they're going to go, this guy didn't sell, this guy didn't sell, this guy didn't sell. You guys are queued up for the next one, because that's what the projects want, that stability, right? They want it to be decentralized, so they want a lot of people to have it, but they also want them to not sell it. And so I want to be that, the Venn diagram. Not me, won't sell. Yes, I want to send to that guy.
Well, the only reason why I sold, because I know what happens with Splinterlands, right? The token, or with most projects, a token comes out, it's high, it's going to go down. That's it.
Yeah.
So,
and often that's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because people are, it's going to go down, so they sell and it goes down.
Yeah.
And look, we've all got our own strategies. Again, it's not about look at what a good person I am.
I'm saying. Chart, Gio?
I can't find
Matt's
it.
Talking? Oh, okay.
I'm trying to find it now.
On CoinGecko?
I'm looking there now. I've looked up GLX, and it's like Astrals. Like this, I don't see it.
Okay.
Oh, I really don't know.
TribalX?
Oh, that might be it, huh? Let me have a look. Tokens. Is it on TribalX?
I don't know. I was just asking.
Yeah, it might just be not listed on CoinGecko. I'm not saying look at me, I'm a wonderful person. I'm saying that's my strategy. My strategy is I want to come up on those reports for additional airdrops that you don't know what's going to happen, in the
Exactly.
future.
Well, you're more long term, man. Because
Yeah.
I don't really care about soccer. With Splinterlands, I have because I like the game. I like TCG, but I really don't care about soccer.
Yeah.
Care.
I'm the same. I'll branch out to tower defense, but I don't care about soccer. I've heard a few people say that the GLS is or Genesis League is still going to be fun for people who don't care about soccer. But I'm like, oh, I've got so much going on that
Exactly, man. Like, there's so many like things that I don't want to like overload of projects and coins. I just want to be in like maximum 2 or 3.
You got to safeguard your own bandwidth. Otherwise, you'll just
Yeah.
get frantic, and then you'll burn out and stress out
Mm.
and flame out.
So we're almost
Absolutely.
out of time. Just wanted to clarify on something. With claiming the rewards for your daily focus. So previously, like if I claimed an hour later than the day before, then it pushed it forward an hour again. So, and if based on your timetable, if you do that every day, a week later, you've moved from 11 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon before you can
Yeah.
claim. So that's changed now. It's always going to reset the exact same time every day.
Yes, around
Yeah.
10, 11 our time.
All
AM.
right. Cool.
I think
And
it
so
was
it doesn't
10.
matter. Doesn't it matter when you claim? It's just you're just flipping them over. Then I don't know if at jackpots whether you can leave them day after day after day and just keep battling and chain together. But I guess it won't give you it won't give you your new focus until you've claimed the previous. So that'll limit that.
Yeah. So running the bots gonna have to change. So if the bot's running early in the morning, it's gonna run out before the focus. So you're gonna have to move it to after.
That's what I did. I
Um,
resetted it a few minutes after the after 12 p.m.
Yeah, gonna have to do that for tomorrow because it's already run today. And on that note, thank you for joining us on Splinterlands 101. Half of the show, welcome to Tartaria, and the second half of the show, we did get around to some Splinterlands. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. If you can pitch in on anything that we've brought up in regards to and anything that we've mentioned, do drop a comment below. Because every week, if you write a comment and it generates the most engagement on that post, you will receive 10% of the post rewards. Thanks for joining us on 81. We will see you next Friday on episode 82. I'm Boba Fett. Peace out.